Okay, so welcome everyone. Welcome to Meshery Build and Release Call. This call takes place every other week, every other Thursday, every second and fourth Thursdays of the week. And so here we are. And mostly we talk about things which are left out in the development call. Mostly things around unit tests, integration tests, end-to-end tests, or build and release things. Uh, Everything regarding GitHub workflows. If we have a deployment running somewhere, if there are some configuration issues with that thing, we discuss it in this call. So all those things we discuss here. So if you have anything related to CI that you miss on the development call, make sure you add that as an agenda item in the build and release meeting, which covers those things. So before I get started with the agenda items or the standing agenda item per se, I'd like to uh, give chance for people who are new to introduce themselves to the community so that we can get to know you better. So I think I see one new person, I guess. I can't really pronounce your name, so I won't try. But Rafa, is it your first time on the call? If you have a mic available, then you can introduce yourself, or you can introduce yourself in the chat, however you prefer.
No, hi. No, this is not the first time I'm on the call. I've been attending the call. Just that I've been away for some time.
Okay. Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, so since there are no other newcomers over here, so I think we should get going with agenda items. And there are some important agenda items today. So I'll go over the test plan later on if we get time or in between the items so that we don't miss the important ones. So I think we should start with there are a bunch of things. I think Pranav, you should start with failing E2E tests because I think this is kind of one of the high priority items that we have. The tests are failing across all the most of the adapters. So it would be nice to know what's the state of this effort to bring it to a state of not failing, or what are the leftover items. I've seen few PRs regarding this, and let's basically get this thing rolling so that we can pass all the tests by the end of this week. So will you share your screen?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like one of the main reason are, first of all, each of the adapter has different workflows which are used for testing the end-to-end working of each adapter, which basically deploys this. First of all, what it does is that it installs Meshery, then it deploys install the adapter, then deploys a specific service mesh using that adapter. Then it installs sample application using the same adapter, and then it basically checks whether all the ports comes up, and if it doesn't, then the workflow fails. So currently the main issue is that um most of our tests are failing because like the design file which we use for testing different applications, design file which we use for testing E2 tests doesn't include the model name of each service mesh specific, and that was actually causing the Meshery server to return error. So there was a very old PR on this thing, which actually have taken care of most of the things. That is, it brought back all the missing our missing resources for which we use, which is there inside of templates. So it brings that back. And the second thing is that it updates at the missing model name, which should be Istio, but it was lowercase. So in Messi server was reporting back error on that. So I think this PR is ready from the perspective of two E2E tests. Only one is failing right now. That is the one which refers to service mesh patterns repository. And I think that is failing because it's giving an error for core application. So this is the only leftover item for this service mesh.
Yeah. So are we? You would know better about this. What's the state of core application right now? Are they taken out completely?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so so the particular Meshery release that this particular workflow is referencing, in this release we don't have that application component, or is it on the master right now?
We don't have.
Okay, what's the Meshery release, Pranav? If you were to check in, I guess in start Meshery server in this one, yeah.
Yeah, 6.90.
Okay, so in 6.90, Abhi, we don't have the application components, right?
True, true. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we would need to. So application component, it was backed up by Argo, but we weren't completely using Argo, so we can. So someone can take this item. You would need a little bit of context. Can you go to a particular design file that has this particular application so that I can give a little context?
I think it was in this repo. So if I go to samples and I do book info, so yeah,
Okay, so here we have virtual service and destination rule, and other than that, everything is an application, right?
yeah,
Okay. So if you can, so yeah, this application currently, basically it's an abstraction over a deployment and a service. So if you were to manually deploy a deployment and then a service, you'd have to make sure that the label selectors match inside the service. Basically, the labels that you gave inside the template of a deployment should match the service. You do that manually, and this application is just abstraction over that. So internally, it creates a deployment and it also creates a service. I'm not sure whether it creates a deployment or replica set. I'll have to see because it's been a long time since I've seen this part of the code. But yeah, eventually you get a pod and a service, and the networking between them is already set up. So since we no longer support this particular application component, each of these instances of application service has to be replaced by two different services, which is deployment.k8s and service.k8s. So of course, if you want to take this item, you should know a bit about, of course, Kubernetes. You should know how to configure deployments and services. So if you have an idea of that, you can take up this item. Second thing you need to know a little bit is you need to have a little bit context. I mean, this isn't required, but this will help to speed things up if you're working on this issue. So that's why I'm not sure whether this, basically a beginner should take this item. If Pranav, you can take this item, then you can. Here, uh, basically the effective result that we're trying to get from this application, you can replace this with a deployment and a service. You can check out the code inside of, I guess, in patterns core, if the code isn't removed as well. I don't know if the code is also removed, but in the code you'll find that what's internally actually deployed. And uh, I'm sure that we manually deploy the service. At least we deploy the service and then we use Argo rollout to deploy the pod. Now I remember. So we don't do deployment. We use Argo rollout for pod using one of their resource, and then we deploy service ourselves. Some combination of that. So basically, just there has to be an effort to remove everywhere we have this type as application, and at least remove this with deployment. You can add service. That would be a little bit more. That will be better if you were to add a service. But since we in our E2E test we test for pods currently, so at least you need to add a deployment over here. So by just looking at the settings, you can get an idea of how the deployment spec is going to look like. You need to have these images in this replica and all that. So I think it would be straightforward to have a corresponding deployment, and then you can also have a corresponding service. Here you only specify container port. Internally, the service it creates, it maps the ports accordingly, target port and all that. So you can create that as well for the tests to pass. So how many of these tests are using this application? Because I'm sure that not all the service mesh adapters are referencing to this particular
I
this.
think just Istio is the only one because it's the sample application for that. So
Okay, so I think Ayush won't be able to. He hasn't responded in other PRs as well. So if you can take over this PR, and I have merged your other PR in the service mesh patterns repo, which was around fixing the model. So I think that would fix few things as well. And inside of service mesh patterns repo, you need to create another PR where you need to do like what I said, replace these instances of application with deployment in a service, and you can test them by deploying it in meshmap first, that whether it's deployed. And since yeah, it should, if you have a cluster, then you should be able to deploy it. it has some things like virtual service and the other thing, the destination rule. So it would be better if you had an service mesh adapter running to test things locally, because that's the environment we set up in the CI. So yeah, the action item here would be to replace this particular to replace application with deployment in a service, because we no longer support application. And eventually, Abhi, did you also remove the code part of the handler which we have, the handler for the core component which we have in the pattern engine, or is that still there? I think Abhi might be AFK. So yeah, I'll get rid of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get the last part. What was that?
I said, I asked you that as we go to deprecate this type application, we have Pranav, if you were to go to Meshery repository, inside of I guess inside of models, models, inside of pattern, inside of core, inside of okay, no, not core. I guess if you were to click on patterns, inside of patterns, patterns again, application. Yeah, we still have that part of code here, so we need to get rid of this package as well. If it's not referenced anywhere, then it's fine, but yeah, we need to get rid of this package. This is the handler for that particular component. So that, I mean, it's not an urgent item, but I think you can create an issue. Someone can take this up to remove this, to remove application package, as we no longer support it. So that's another action item. The first action item is to replace application with deployment in a service. And and the second action item is to create a follow-up issue to so anyone who wants to get started with a Golang, with some Golang issue, I think you might need a little help from me, because that part of code might be referenced at other places as well. So you might need, basically you don't want to break things. So I'll be happy to help if someone wants to create a pull request for this. If you can go back to the package that I was talking about, yeah, just this application directory. This this is the application package. So we just need to remove this application package as we no longer support it. That's the issue for anyone who wants to take this up.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you do me a favor? See the ellipsis in the upper right-hand corner? Right next to add file. And delete directory there.
Actually, no, I don't think we should do that, because it might be referencing this package. This package might be referencing other parts of the code, so the build will start to fail. So we need to make sure that first locally everything is working. If we go ahead and delete this particular package, and nowhere in the code this package is being referenced, so nowhere we are importing this package. If like deleting can work right now, if we are sure that server models patterns application is not imported anywhere, otherwise this will break the build.
And one more thing I wanted to add was regarding Linkerd utility tests. So last time we discussed that the reason for Linkerd tests are failing because the URL for which we are fetching the CRDs is not correct. Like I think we are using the same URL which we use for Istio, but of course these two are different projects, so the URL cannot be same. So I updated that as well. And like I was just testing few things, so I didn't merge this PR, but like the URL should be this, because I just checked that if we go to Linkerd and we see Linkerd CRD, it's under template directory. I think some other, so yeah, so we should, I think some
Other
recent
tests
PR.
passing?
No, they aren't passing because still there are some things I need to fix. So it's because the function which we have for like sorting the function which we have sorting the version is also, I think, doesn't sort properly, because I was not getting the right version when I was running.
Actually, it sorts in the ascending order, so you need to get the last element.
Okay. But
Okay.
it still complains there is a missing model for linkerd.
Okay, if you can also assign this PR to me, I'll check this one out and fix this on.
Okay. Though I updated the YAML file as well, which uses the model name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let me share my screen again. So thank you. Thanks, Pranav. The next item is, okay, I think we can talk, we can come back to this one. And then there is this urgent item that we have from by Abdullah, which is performance tests with Nighthawk. And yeah, currently test with we have WRK2, Nighthawk, and Fortio. Test with Fortio are passing, but test with Nighthawks are not passing. I think I might be a little behind this, but I think we don't have this in our container image. That might be the reason over here. It tries to look for this binary. And I think Abdullah is already assigned it. Lee, do you want to talk about this a little, or Abdullah, you want to talk about this?
Yeah. I just pinged Abdullah to join the call. I don't think he's here. And yeah, and I don't have further details beyond what you just said. Do we know if yeah, gosh, at what point in time or like why that artifact wouldn't be available? I wonder if this is, so looks like that could be an issue.
We used to package it inside of Meshery's image, but we don't do it right now.
I think it was. I was just saying that I think to support multi-platform build, we removed it because Nighthawk, the binary which we use, wasn't able to build on that ARM base before.
Yeah, that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Although it doesn't seem like justification for why we would have left it like that, just as a test to verify multi-platform, but why it would have been a permanent change. That's a, do you guys know any more about that? Might have just been an oversight or like.
By the same time, we were also like talking about having this functionality over in the perf adapter. So that's why I guess we didn't focus on having it back in the container image here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It makes sense. I was just checking to see if it was just an oversight or kind of something that got lost in the, lost along the way. Makes sense. But just wanted to double check in case, no, there was a very specific reason because the binary didn't run anyway and caused the server to crash or some other reason. But
yeah, I don't remember any such reason right now.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I think Lee, you also pointed out in 81, 82. Here I can see that we take out this binary. We don't have it over here, but from the layer 5 get Nighthawk image, we take out the Nighthawk service binary, which it's trying to run over here. It's trying to run the Nighthawk service binary, and we take it out and we put it in the CMD directory over here. So if this step worked out correctly, and if get Nighthawk image has this particular binary inside of this path, so this should have worked. We don't build it here, but we extract it from this guy get Nighthawk image, so this should have worked. Other than this, I don't have much context right now.
Yeah, Uzair, if you have a copy of the, like, I'm wondering if we can kind of get to the bottom of this urgent item. Uzair, if you have the Meshery server image sitting around. I wonder if it's running, if you can just exec into it and verify if the binary is present or not. Maybe it's present, but in a location that we weren't expecting. Or...
I don't
I don't
have
think-
binary image running, but I will verify. Anything.
I don't think it has shell, so you'll have to work around that a little. You can still check if it has this particular binary or not.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to the next item, which is from Aditya. Is Aditya on the call? I don't think so. That
Yeah, I'm on the call.
okay. This is from, but I think this is from the other Aditya.
Next.
Yeah. So okay, moving on to the next item, Meshery playground reset failure. I'll quickly talk about this. So this workflow was this is the older run of that particular workflow, and this workflow was failing for a while. And what all this workflow does is that it reboots and resets. I also added this thing, this depends on relationship. So first it resets the cluster and then it reboots. It now only reboots. So we have two nodes. One node runs the cluster, another one runs Meshery server. So it only reboots the one with the cluster. And I think, as Lee suggested, we might even get rid of this if we don't face any problems. And reset is just as it was previously, and it's the cleanup script ran last time, and because it didn't have any namespaces to delete, there was nothing to delete here. So yeah, there is another issue that is created by Pranav, which is to make sure that the script that is added inside of .github directory inside scripts, this playground cleanup, this is currently I have manually added this inside of VM. So when we SSH into it, we can run the script, but we need a workflow which can make sure that whenever any change is made to this particular file, we run a workflow which SSH into the VM and manually overrides, basically moves this particular script into the VM, overriding the existing script. And I think someone has already taken up this issue. So someone, I think it's Suhail. So I don't know if Suhail is on the call, but I think he is on the call. Okay, so I think Suhail, you have enough context on this one. If you have any questions, you can ask right now, or we can move ahead if you want to work on this.
I don't have question right now. If I will have, I will ask on Slack.
Okay.
Sohail, do you have any progress made?
Yeah, I have made some progress. I think I will make a PR by night.
Yeah, great. Yeah, what's the progress that you've made?
Should I share my screen?
Sure. Briefly. If you can do it fast, yep. So the approach should just be like in some respects is ideally just a git checkout, right? Because when we make that's kind of a common procedure. We want to be git driven. If we're making changes in the script, we're verifying those changes, committing them. Then if we do a git checkout, a git refresh on the server,
I'm not able to share my screen right.
okay.
Okay, so anyways, let's move ahead. So the second item, then another item is from Uzair, which is the deployment tests, provisioning of Istio and add-ons. So would you like to talk about what your the things that you discovered, Uzair, so that we can work on anything, the things which are causing us issues?
So in my testing, like I tried to provision Istio service mesh and deploy all the sample apps and the add-ons that we have, like Grafana, Prometheus, Eager, and Kiali. So I was successfully able to deploy all this on my local Kubernetes cluster. So for provisioning and deprovisioning, we don't have any issues for Istio adapter.
And you were doing this with Meshops v1 or with the design file?
Not with the design file, but like running the Meshery server, like mesh of V1?
Okay, I think we should make sure that, because we are design driven right now, and because if it runs with a design, then we can be also sure that it will run as a mesh map design. So I think it should be tested with a mesh map design. And inside of service mesh patterns repo, we already have some examples, and the ones with application. Pranav is going to replace those, so they'll start working as well. So I think it's the service mesh. I don't know if this is we should like currently we use service mesh patterns repo to as a repository of all the designs that we have, and but we also have the catalog. So we have like these two places, and here we have some previous samples. You can like try to deploy some of these to make sure that things are working fine. So if you want to really test if Istio mesh will be deployed if someone tries to do it from mesh like Meshy CTL pattern apply or using mesh map, try to deploy it. Some of these are also all the ones which are published. So like this is the book info app, but I think yeah, this is to install one. This is to install one should like this can be and since Pranav has fixed the model name, I think if you try to deploy this one, this should work. They should probably work. So if you can also try with designs, and if you encounter any issues, there is an existing issue with the. It's not the issue with the add-on, but it's a separate issue where the tests are failing in Istio adapter, and I think Pranav, I think you have a PR for that as well, I guess, or
Regarding what thing?
the add-ons which are failing. So inside of Istio adapter, you also have like a two
Yeah.
tests are passing.
Yeah, two tests add-ins are also passing now. I think the iOS PR, the last one, 575. Yeah, he actually added all the missing components. So the two sets are passing. Only one is failing, which is the sample app.
Okay. So add-on one is passing is the sample app. Okay, so and the sample
Yeah.
app would be fixed by because I merged your. Okay, no, that would be fixed when you replace application with deployment and service.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so can you also like when you create that issue or the PR, just reference it over here? I'll leave a comment so that we know that this is blocked right now. And I think as soon as this PR is merged, everything in Istio would start passing, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, and what was the other status in the Linkerd? I think
Yeah.
there.
In the Linkerd, it's like I created a PR which updates the CRD URL. The only thing which is failing right now is still it says that the model component for Linkerd model is not available. Which like
Okay,
even
okay.
if
Yeah. I think there we need some better errors. So right now the errors are not very useful. I don't know because here in the CI we use Meshery CTL. In UI we also need better errors. But right now when you do pattern apply or when you try to post a pattern, it just tells you that it does not recognize it. I don't know if we also should give suggestions on what are the other related models that are available, so that because that will be helpful to the end user, as well as while debugging we would understand that okay, maybe because it's not because it is case sensitive, so maybe linker D's there, but it's in small case. So maybe in the response of an error we can give some helpful responses so that user can, if something fails to deploy, they know that okay, there are related components which kind of match this name but not really. So because we have gotten a little strict with what we allow, so like we are mandating now model and all. So I think showing helpful errors would be nice. That being said, I'll take care of this particular Linkerd DPR to make sure that this works. And if other folks also share this sentiment that this particular error should be a little more helpful, it should have a little more context than just this thing is not available. It should also tell what related things are, something like that. We can have a separate follow-up issue. And this won't be a Meshy CTL thing. This would be again a Meshy server thing where it tries to do the validation. It tries to do that discovery of from the registry. That discovery can be a little bit more contextual and a little bit more helpful that to help user that this particular component is not there, but you can try with this one or something like that. Okay, so other than Linkerd and Istio, what's the state of other adapters? I think because I think others are passing, right?
I have to check. I have not checked any other than Istio.
These are the dependable PRs. Okay. Okay. So coming back to the, so the next item is from Subedi. Subedi, would you like to talk about the SMP spec dashboard?
Yeah, so we talked about the Nighthawk and WRK2 failing. The similar issue I discovered for WRK2 also. I open an issue, share my screen. Yeah, so the similar thing that happened with Nighthawk 2 is happening with WRK2 as well. Load test not service reachable. Make sure.
Can you look at the error above it? So the exec field, I guess. Yeah, here also it's not able to find the WRK binary.
Yeah, this one was, and the other thing is that we are facing some issue, like the performance profiles in the website is not getting updated. It's like actually it's from September, and I cannot, like, right now I am not able to like correctly pinpoint what the issue is, because in the tests our names are being created for current one, but still we are not getting it. Yeah, like either the results run here are not getting updated in the for the layer5.io user. That's what I'm like suspecting. Like the test run here are not getting updated in the database of layer5.io. Maybe some changes here and there have occurred this. Like
Yeah,
I'm,
somebody, which API are you using to retrieve the results? We
uh
should,
API. Yeah, this one.
yeah, if you, yeah, what does the output of that look like? So do you see any of the,
Yeah, no, none of the current one is there. There's only the old one is there. This is the latest one, and
okay. I wonder if there's any additional parameters to help you retrieve latest or.
I don't think they're like latest ones.
So the 12 that are showing right now, or no, I'm sorry. How many are showing right now?
Currently 10.
It's actually performance profile, not the results.
Sorry.
Actually, you're fetching the profiles, not the results, because even though the profile was created several months back, but the result inside of the profile would be latest.
Yeah,
I
but
think
this updated as should be like updating as like new test results come, right? Just updated at field.
yes, I think so.
Yeah, this is also not.
But this updated ad is for profile, not results, right? Are the profiles updated when new results are created?
Sorry.
Are the profiles updated? This updated at timestamp we're talking about when new results are created?
I'm not sure, but I think it should be updated. Like it should get updated.
I mean, part of what he's asking is, you know, while every test run you would expect new results, that makes sense. But the other part of the question is, during every test run, are new performance profiles also created, or are results just added to existing profiles?
Results are added to existing profiles.
Okay. That'd be great. That would be ideal. I don't think that that's true. I mean, I don't think that I've seen that is true. Like when I,
Like in the past, it was like that only the behavior was that only we had one profile like this, this particular profile, and then the test results for those profile used to come in that performance profile itself. But like
that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. I wonder, I encourage you to double check and
Okay.
test the the scheduled action, the scheduled workflow to see if, to just verify that the same profile name is being reused.
Okay.
But yeah, but we also, outside of that, we also just do have to verify if the API is returning.
The latest one, yeah. That's the main thing that needs to be verified. Yeah, I'm looking into it.
So we should be able to look at the action fairly quickly, and tell whether or not the same profiles are being reused. The profile name is that. Did those characters at the beginning, are those randomly generated every time, or are they?
I guess so. These are randomly and just work to load. Yeah, those are randomly generated.
Okay, then yeah. So I think that answers Ashish's question, if that's the case. So we get new performance profiles every time, and maybe we only get one result per profile, which, is probably not what we want necessarily. It's not the end of the world, but it's not what we wanted to do, is show over time for the same set of tests.
Mhm.
Yeah, how the results change over time.
So there needs to do like some changes on the Equinix metal also. CNC. Yeah, every time new profile is being made. Yeah.
Yeah, just in the script itself, for like in the workflows here, the change would need to be made.
Oh, okay.
So folks that are on the phone, Subedi will need help with this. Anybody into bash scripts?
I can write bash scripts.
Cool. Okay. Doesn't sound like Raphael or other people are gonna necessarily volunteer anyway. So yeah. Okay. Subedi, let me know if you get stuck. I'll help.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Subedi. Let me share my screen again. So the next item is from so of course Suko is not here because of the time zone issue. But yeah, he had been working on a bunch of items to improve the code coverage as well as the code quality. So he has opened a bunch of issues, and also I think he had created, and also he was reviewing a bunch of PRs to increase the code coverage, and it went from, I guess, it went up to 50% in some cases. So he would have been able to talk more about this. Lee, if you have more context on all the things that that Asuko has been up to, you can talk about it for a minute.
Yeah. No, I think he's just trying to increase code coverage for a few of the different components in Meshery. And I think he opened up a couple of issues, just calling for volunteers. There's some, so I think for the most part, he's focused on unit tests. I think that's what his issues call for. And so yep, these components are written in Golang. So if Golang is your thing, some help with unit tests is what's being asked for.
Yep. So moving on to the next item, it's from Fridish. Fridish, would you like to share your screen?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So actually, I'm working on this issue, like exposing the Grafana and Prometheus Pro. And I just want to actually get more context because I'm kind of confused by some stuff. So basically, from like the issue, like the Grafana and Prometheus are actually supposed to run on the Kubernetes cluster, but which actually is I think is not like the case, because actually check that discussion where Ashish and Lee were talking, and actually like the Prometheus has been deployed, but is no longer the case. So yeah, okay. So what actually I wanted to know is you mentioned about the cluster was bootstrapped from scratch. So I didn't actually get that part. And so from actually, since now the Prometheus is actually not available, like what is, normally like the next step? Should we, I guess we have to do something, but what? And also, okay. That's probably, I guess that's like the manifest file that was actually added for the deployment of Prometheus, since now it's not there. And actually, like Grafana actually is not available on the cluster. I didn't find like any file about the deployment of like Grafana. So yeah.
Yeah, Grafana was not added previously as well, and this Prometheus deployment that you're seeing, it was, I think it's a node. It was for it was deployed alongside a node exporter. So inside of monitoring namespace, we had this Prometheus deployment, and to send the metrics for of the node. So it used to scrape the locally running node exporter binaries that we had. And I'll have to see if we also have that running. But if we don't, then we need to install those things again. And I don't think we have a script for it. So that script should be added over here. So that script should, I think we can add all of that in one script where we deploy Prometheus, Grafana, and before that, we also deploy Node Exporter. So currently, Node Exporter will allow us to extract metrics from for the nodes. Previously, the ask was to have metrics for Meshery as well, but since Meshery is no longer in the cluster, I think having the metrics for just the nodes is good enough. Lee, is that the case? I mean, it's good enough to have metrics of the nodes only via Prometheus.
Yeah, yep, that's right. Yeah, you'll, with just that exporter installed, users of the playground will be able to see metrics for each of the pods, like the CPUs of the pods. And they'll be able to see there'll be a couple of areas in Meshery UI and a couple of areas in Mesh Map as an extension that will be used to scrape those metrics.
Okay.
Yeah, if there is a Grafana, that's equally as helpful, because, or if we just have some static boards that we want to load up, like just some board configs that we can load up, those help drive some of the graphs in Meshery UI. So the way that we've used it in the past, somewhat conveniently, is to install some of Istio's add-ons and then just use the Grafana boards that come with that particular Grafana instance. But given that we're not guaranteeing Istio will always be running in the playground, yeah, just a couple of generic, Kubernetes generic Grafana dashboard configs. Those configs, well, one, if you connect Meshery to an actively running Grafana, it'll import those configs, and then you can just use them to, Meshery will just use those in its graphs. So yeah, if like Node Exporter would have quite a few metrics, and then there's got to be standard Grafana boards out there for just the standard node exporter metrics. And that's all we're trying to do is let people know that Meshery has that capability. And to have that functional inside of the playground for them. So outside of just that infrastructure running, a Prometheus and a Grafana with just your stereotypical config, that the other challenge is, well, it's a little bit easier to see inside of the Meshery architecture deck. But the other challenge is that Meshery server is running on a Docker host, and the cluster under management is running on a different host, so 2 different servers. Whenever you're running Kubernetes, if you want to expose a service external to the cluster, so in this case, we need to expose Prometheus and Grafana as services on the cluster to get them exposed external to the cluster, because Meshery is running external. Now, Prometheus and Grafana shouldn't be publicly exposed to the internet, and they don't need to be. Those 2 hosts can talk to each other privately. And the diagram inside of the slide deck highlights that. Yep, so kind of 2 challenges there. I think
Okay.
Friedish accidentally, his network dropped on him, I think.
Anyways, thanks, British. I don't think he's here, but anyways, I'll help him to get, at least we can get started with Prometheus, and then we can add support for Grafana. I'll help with the initial PR to add that script, which can help us deploy Prometheus. Last item is from Mario. Mario, would you like to talk about your item?
Hi. Oh,
Hi.
do we have time for me to go over this?
Yeah, we do have.
Okay, I'll start sharing. Yep, so I'll just assume you guys can see my screen. And so what I'm looking at right now is this issue. I took a look at the latest action runs for the specific Meshery UI and server run. So out of them, it looks like, let me remove this. It's just so annoying. Yep. So this one, I'll let it load for a sec. So that issue still seems to happen intermittently, even for the same. This is a PR, like it was merged 5 hours ago. So a run from 8 hours ago, like it had the same problem. So we're getting this error during a simple visit to the page. So it's still happening, even though the issue was opened about 2 weeks ago. So that's one. And this another run that's 8 hours ago. So another one from 5 hours ago, it didn't happen. So I do see it's either, it looks intermittent. Because if it were because of, yeah, I think these changes aren't even related to the to that area. Where's the register go? Yeah, it doesn't look related at all, but I'm 100% sure. Let me see. I was looking at this other one. Now this is a different one. So yeah, I'm really not sure how to debug it, because there's limitations between these 2. If we look at the steps being ran, this is not like saving any screenshots nor videos like the other. I don't know why this is dancing, but the other job for the end-to-end test, it does seem to. It says upload videos, but I see that it uploads I think there's screenshots, but I'm still taking a look, like how can we enhance the other, or like maybe even both jobs, so that we can debug what's going on. I was thinking of adding a job to print the logs from the backend. But in the integration test, I mean, I'm not sure if we would. We probably do have access to those logs. But yeah, so that's one limitation, and the other one is that we do have access to some Cypress Cloud information. So that's a dashboard for those who are not familiar. But the only runs that are stored, like there's like very useful information when there's an error. It's only for the end-to-end test. At least that's what I'm seeing. So yeah, still haven't defined the root cause. But if there's any ideas or suggestions, I'm open to them. I'll just keep looking. And yeah, it's very weird. Like it's just a single visit to a page, and it times out for some reason. I wouldn't think it's the tool, because the visit command is a very stable instruction. I've never seen it fail before, unless there's a problem in the backend. So yeah. Well, that's all. Anyone has any feedback on this?
Yeah, no, Pranav might have some insight potentially. Although, yeah, maybe he wouldn't. Just because I was that's an area of extensibility, so we do have plugins that can land in there, but this particular service, or this particular, to turn off anonymous statistic usage, well, it's built into Meshery UI. It will.
Depends on the provider, right?
It could be, it's on both the local provider and the remote provider. So people can turn off.
Yeah.
The response was error socket timed out. So do you see okay, it's user preferences. Is that the specific URL, do you know, that's being
visited from the browser side? So this is interacting with the browser, instructing it to load that page, that specific route.
Are we using local provider for this test or the remote provider?
I think so. Yeah, it should be the same as all the other tests. So let me just.
None provider.
Actually, I have. It should be the non-provider. Is that the local provider, or is there another one? Okay, cool.
Yeah, none provider with Meshery server off.
Here's the. Okay, yeah, here's the test. So it's very simple.
Okay, so Meshery server is off and we are trying to fetch preferences. Then like we wouldn't get it because the server is off, right?
Wait, let me see if this is the right. Yeah, it's the same one. Integration. Yeah, for some reason it's, where's the visit one? Visit. Wait, it doesn't make sense, does it? Oh, it's this other one, sorry. Yeah, there might be the wrong link. Yep, visit. So these are the steps of the test. This is stubbing this response. So it's an integration test. So probably there's something else we need to mock, that sometimes the server has it ready. Like the idea is this test like the front end in isolation for a specific scenario. So yeah, I'll try to run it locally and see if there's any missing canned response we could add, so that the page is ready in this when this integration test runs. I think that would be the most simple thing to do.
Okay, one more thing. I think the API is wrong, because it shouldn't be /user/preferences. It's API/user/threads.
But it's a front end route, so it's a page, not an endpoint.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, good point. I could double check because it sometimes passes. Like I have the other result here. Here it went. No, not this one. But here it passed. Like we can go in the results and see which tests were ran, and we would see that the preferences, yep, it worked without any problem. Compiling, event compiled. Could it be that the compilation took more than a certain timeout? Let me, yeah, because this output event compiled, it's from the front end, I believe. Let me double check that. So here, oh, it compiled, but it took a bit more time, like 29 seconds.
Mm.
Like I'm highlighting line 203 and 229 respectively. Yep. Interesting. I could try increasing the timeout. Like, I think I thought I already had done that, but yeah, I'll. Thanks for the feedback. I guess. Or anything else like anyone has? Yeah, this is the one filling. I could just add a timeout and make it greater than the default. That would help a lot. I should have done that before, but I guess I didn't notice. Yeah, so we just add a comma here and then an object with the timeout property, and then we set whatever milliseconds we want, and that would help this wait a bit more as needed. So hoping that helps. That's all I have for now. I'll keep looking at the rest of the failures, looking for things to fix over here.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. As there's one or two other small items, well, hopefully small, that are important for some of our users. So one of them is one of the users, Intel in specific, they're trying to use Meshery's filter capability, its WebAssembly filter management capability. And so that's an experimental capability, but having an understanding of the status of that would be nice, the status of its behavior, like what we consider to be supported in an experimental phase versus not. So Pranav, do you know?
Yeah, actually, there is an issue for it. Let me share my screen. So one of the users just tried to use filter, which is a sub command from meshctl, and they realized that meshctl returns an error because internally filter is part of experiment, but according to our documentation, it's like documented as a main command. So like there could be two ways out of this. Either we could document it correctly, or we should change our implementation. Because like I'm not sure, because I'm not working at meshctl before, so I'm not sure why we have documented like this if the implementation is different.
Yeah, Aditya isn't on. Aditya A. But yeah, I think what you're saying is, hey, it's an experimental command, and so we need to make sure that it's presented as an experimental command. And so, but the documentation doesn't highlight that. The documentation just, and Yeah, that's something to make clear with Aditya, that we're ignoring that. Like it might just be that it's a couple of comments that need to be updated inside of the Golang for that particular command.
Mhm.
It might be just as simple as that. I mean, in terms of the docs, because the docs are generated from the Golang.
Yeah.
Although here on this particular page, I think this page is handwritten, so this can be something that you can update real fast.
Okay.
And then outside of that, outside of the docs, you were saying that you haven't necessarily been able to test whether or not these are being successfully applied.
Yeah. I've not tested this before, so I'll actually test and then I'll first update the documentation and then test whether they actually work. Then I can reach out to Aditya, fix or do necessary thing.
So to one of Ashish's points earlier, he was giving some good counsel as to like where we should use some of the material for the end-to-end tests, that, you know, looking more and more toward using the stuff from the catalog. He was also saying, hey, you know, more and more we want to make sure that MeshOps V2 works. And so he's just kind of, in both ways, he was kind of counseling toward use of designs. And so here as well, we certainly want to make sure that this client, Meshery CTL works, but and in addition to that, we would want to make sure that, you know, whatever you've got working here works in Meshery UI as well.
Okay.
So good. So we had one of our users, some folks at Intel asking on about a lot of the issues that we're discussing today. You know, the nice thing is we've got some competent individuals, you know, working through the issues. But I'm going to try to capture that status of what's working, what's not. The most confidence enforcing way to capture that status is like pointing to our compatibility test or our end-to-end, you know, our integration tests. So yeah, if we're seeing red on that page, the red just isn't good. I mean, it might be that some of those tests, they're just no longer valid. It's like, no problem. It's time to change them to gray, or like you can remove them from the list. but red, so red isn't good. We should. Ashish, you don't happen to know if we have any end-to-end tests that include a WebAssembly filter?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so we are 6 minutes past, and this brings us to the end of the call. Thanks everyone for joining, and we hope that we can get past that Nighthawk issue as well as the failing end-to-end test before the end of this week. So by tomorrow or the weekend. So yeah, if no one has anything else to say, then we can wrap up the call. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll meet next week. Bye everyone.